Cognitive distortions are inaccurate ways of thinking that can lead to negative thoughts and emotions. They can also interfere with our ability to make sound decisions and live fulfilling lives. In this video, we'll discuss 20 common cognitive distortions and how to deal with them. What are cognitive distortions? Cognitive distortions are thought patterns that are often negative and inaccurate. They can lead to a variety of problems, including anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. There are many different types of cognitive distortions, but some of the most common include all or nothing thinking, seeing things in black and white, with no shades of gray. For example, thinking, I'm a failure if I don't get a perfect score on this test. Overgeneralization, making sweeping conclusions based on a single event or piece of evidence. For example, thinking, I'm always messing up after making a mistake. Mental filtering, focusing on the negative aspects of a situation and ignoring the positive. For example, dwelling on a critical comment from your boss while ignoring all the positive feedback you've received. Disqualifying the positive, minimizing or dismissing your accomplishments and positive qualities. For example, thinking, that was just luck after getting a promotion at work. Jumping to conclusions, making assumptions without having all the facts. For example, thinking, my partner is mad at me because they didn't answer your phone call. Mind reading, believing that you know what other people are thinking without any evidence. For example, thinking, my friends think I'm boring. Fortune telling, predicting the future in a negative way. For example, thinking, I'm going to fail my job interview. Emotional reasoning, believing that your thoughts and feelings are always accurate and reflect reality. For example, thinking, I feel like a failure, so I must be a failure. Should statements, holding yourself and others to unrealistic standards. For example, thinking, I should be able to do this perfectly. Labeling and mislabeling, assigning negative labels to yourself and others. For example, thinking, I'm a loser, or he's a jerk. Personalization, taking things personally that aren't really about you. For example, thinking, my friend didn't invite me to the party because they don't like me. Control fallacies, believing that you have control over things that you actually can't control. For example, thinking, if I just worry enough about this, it won't happen. Fallacy of fairness, believing that the world should be fair and that you deserve to get what you want. For example, thinking, it's not fair that I have to work so hard while other people get to be lazy. Blaming, holding yourself or others responsible for things that are beyond your control. For example, blaming yourself for your partner's bad mood. Musts, oughts, and shoulds, using rigid and inflexible language to describe your expectations for yourself and others. For example, thinking, I must be perfect, or he ought to do more around the house. Global labeling, making broad generalizations about yourself or others based on a single event or piece of evidence. For example, thinking, I'm a terrible friend, after forgetting to call your friend back. Always being right, having a strong need to be right and to prove others wrong. For example, always having the last word in an argument. Disqualifying the negative, minimizing or dismissing your negative experiences and emotions. For example, telling yourself, it's not that bad, after a breakup. Black and white thinking, seeing the world in terms of black and white, with no shades of gray. For example, thinking, I'm either a success or a failure. Emotional reasoning, believing that your thoughts and feelings are always accurate and reflect reality. For example, thinking, I feel like a failure, so I must be a failure. Self-serving bias, taking credit for your successes and blaming others for your failures. For example, thinking, I won the promotion because I'm the best person for the job, or I lost the game because my teammates were terrible. How to deal with cognitive distortions. There are a number of things you can do to deal with cognitive distortions in a healthy way. Here are a few tips. Identify your cognitive distortions. The first step to dealing with cognitive distortions is to identify them. Once you know what your cognitive distortions are, you can start to challenge them. Challenge your cognitive distortions. Ask yourself if your cognitive distortions are realistic and helpful. Are there any other ways to look at the situation? Replace your cognitive distortions with more positive and realistic thoughts. Once you've challenged your cognitive distortions, try to replace them with more positive and realistic thoughts. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present.